violence is on the rise, not just in D.C., but across the country. And if you think that these kids need to be coddled and they need to be hugged, they need to have consequences, they need to understand that enough is enough, that we're going to put them in jail or some kind of youth rehabilitation detention facility and not allow the D.C. Council, one of whom I just recently indicted, to take cover for these kids. It's time to end it.
Yes. That's the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, also known as Judge Jeanine, or Judge Jeanine Pirro, because she's Judge Jeanine Pirro. You know her from television and things. Fighting crime in our nation's capital? The President of the United States has no business doing that. Come on. Leave it to the Democrats here in D.C. They ought to know they've raised half of these criminals. That's just the city council. They don't all know who their children are, but that's not important right now. 15 federal law enforcement agencies have been allowed to start enforcing the law in our nation's capital, and the Democrats are very angry about it because they prefer more crime over less crime. See, that's who they are. Those kind of people they are. They like crime. President Trump, a young man working for Doge, was beaten half to death by a violent mob of Democrat criminals just the other day. In Washington, D.C., President Trump said, we might have to take over the District of Columbia, take away their independent status. I think that's a good idea. I think even the federal government would do a better job of running this city than the people that we've elected to run this city. That might sound crazy if you live in a normal place, but I don't, live in a normal place. So we got that going. The New York Times is very angry about it. Trump orders deployment of federal law enforcement in Washington, D.C. Well, it is the federal district, and we do have, 17 different agencies with the power of arrest in Washington, D.C., and we're only 66 square miles. I think that includes the water in the rivers as well. Isn't that amazing? And The Hill, Trump orders federal law enforcement to patrol D.C., and they're outraged. You don't want to fight crime. You don't want to arrest criminals. Democrats want to elect criminals. They want to have parties for criminals. They're going to have a backyard barbecue for criminals, and then everything will be stolen. Isn't it great? 15 federal law enforcement agencies, in addition to the already existing Metropolitan Police Department, MPD. A fine police department. It could use some leadership changes. I think that would be good. And the crime, honestly, the fact that the news media, meaning the Democrats, are very upset about it. Extraordinary stuff. Trump orders increased federal law enforcement in D.C. Yay, I'm in favor of that. I'm actually entirely in favor of that, because I think crime is bad. See, right? Speaking of which, that mob racist attack in Cincinnati where the Democrats attacked the nice people. The Democrats were all black, and the nice people that they attacked violently, and that lady that got punched in the face by Mike Tyson wannabe, she was on the television last night talking about her experience on the street in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I've got some of that for you, because that's also about the Democrat Party. The president wants to talk about crime a little bit, because the Democrats keep committing all kinds of crimes and beating up nice people in the street in Cincinnati, beating up nice people in the street in Washington, D.C., beating up nice people and robbing. And the Democrats, they like illegal aliens and don't like Americans. They're not on our side. But I've got a little bit of this and a little bit of that for you, because Democrats keep shoveling it, and I keep cleaning it up. And so, among the many stories we have today, and there are a great many, as always, extraordinary things going on in the world, and President Trump looking to secure peace in Europe, where there is now war in Europe, because Joe Biden was president, and peace through strength, has the other side of that coin is war through weakness. And Joe Biden was the very model of weakness as president of the United States. War in the Middle East, war in Europe. when Joe Biden's president, because the left is here. Joe Biden never made any sounds at all about peace talks. Do you remember that? Nothing at all. Years went by. War. The war machine, the military-industrial complex in the United States, they loved Joe Biden because he sat there and smirked and ate ice cream. What is it? Chocolate chip? Is that it? He's out there stumbling around, bumping into walls, getting ice cream again. And nobody will go with him because he's him. But that's it. And we've got a lot to talk about in the Trump White House. 200 days, President Trump in the White House. 200 days of winning. President Trump is keeping his promises. The White House put out a statement yesterday and ticked off a few, and really just a few of the things that he's accomplished in this very, very busy 200 days as President of the United States. Second time around, you're probably aware of that. Although there might be some Democrats listening, and you gotta keep your eyes peeled for them. Sounds painful, keeping your eyes peeled, I've got to say. But President Trump ticking off, they put out a statement, and ticking off some of the things that they've accomplished. Honestly, and I do recall the news media cheering Joe Biden because he kept fueling and funding the war in Europe. Oh, good. More weapons for war in Europe. That ought to go on for another year. How many years will this go on for? And President Trump trying to drag Vlad the Impaler Putin, the communist killer, murderer, guy who poisons people with polonium-210. That's a radioactive isotope that put it in your soup and you die slowly and painfully. He's a bad guy because he's a commie. He's a commie. Right? He's Putin. He's Vlad the Impaler. And President Trump trying to get him to the table to negotiate an end to the hostilities against Ukraine. Joe Biden didn't do that. Joe Biden's Secretary of State didn't do that. Joe Biden's nobody. National Security Advisor. Nobody even talked about it. They're just like, hey, maybe we could get him F-16s. Maybe we could get him Patriot missiles. Maybe we could spread the war. Because the Democrats, they presided as president over the American Civil War during, the Confederacy. That was the Democrats. And World War I and World War II and the Korean War and the Vietnam War. Other than that, the Democrats have a pretty good record on war, don't they? Because they're not on our side. And they're not on the side of good things. Isn't it amazing? So President Trump hopes raised of freeze in Ukraine war as Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin set to meet. They're going to meet. Amazing stuff. At the same time, we got this one left-wing, dim-witted woman in Washington named Eleanor Holmes Norton. She's elected time after time after time. I think she's been our non-voting delegate to Congress for about 50 years now. And she's very upset because President Trump is talking about federalizing the city of Washington, D.C. And it's amazing stuff. The Eleanor Holmes Norton, after Trump threatens to federalize D.C. police and call in D.C. National Guard. Well, we'll see about all that. Stuff going on, lots and lots of stuff going on. We got an update on Jasmine Crockett. She's one of my favorite members of Congress. It turns out she is about the worst person on Capitol Hill to work for. She is arrogant and cruel and nasty, and she's not on anybody's side. She likes Cadillac limousines everywhere she goes. Not a regular sedan. She wants the big SUV, the Cadillac. And when her staffers show up, they are to stand outside of the Cadillac Escalade and hold the door open for her while she enters the extra-large black luxury vehicle. Because don't you know who she is? And ex-employees of hers, she has many ex-employees because she's so, we'll just say, difficult to work for, that they say that she's not so much a member of Congress as she is a social media influencer. And that's all she wants to be. Because I've been saying this for years now, it's all a terrible television show. The Democrats have turned our entire political system into a terrible television show. Your Democrat Party. And she is very, very upset about everything because she doesn't want to fight crime in Washington, D.C. Eleanor Holmes Norton, my non-voting delegate. I voted for Marion Barry when he was here repeatedly, but I've never voted for Eleanor Holmes Norton. Isn't she the only one on the ballot, Michael? I think she's always the only one on the ballot. and I like that. But Eleanor Holmes Norton's statement after Trump threatens to federalize D.C. police, call in National Guard, and womp, womp, womp. He wants peace in Ukraine, and he wants peace on the streets of Washington, D.C. There are weekends where, there are more people shot and killed in Chicago than there are killed in the war in Ukraine. I mean, just in Chicago alone. If you add up the number of Democrat murders across the country, that's another thing altogether, isn't it? Yes, it is. Michael knows that. Great many Democrat calamities that they womp, I'm telling you. Oh, also, did you see the story out of Las Vegas? An AI, another CEO, you know how Democrats shoot and kill CEOs on the sidewalks of New York? They murder them with guns. They shoot them. And then they brag about it. And then the Democrats say, oh, he's cute. I like his abs. I want my daughter to date this murderer. And that's today's Democrat Party. Something terribly wrong with them. But Vegas Agrippa, AI CEO Blake Owens, said it by mail, mailed a bloody pig head, and as you might expect, with a threatening note. Why would you sever a pig's head and send it to somebody if you didn't include a threatening note? What kind of an idiot would you have to be? But have you seen this? The New York Post has the story. The Washington Post doesn't, but he's a real estate mogul of some kind in Las Vegas. And he received, and I'm talking about a pig. I'm talking like, a 400-pound pink pig out of a storybook. And they severed the head of the pig, which probably weighs like 60 pounds all by itself. And they sent it to this CEO. So it's Democrats, right? The CEO of an AI startup received a severed pig's head and a threatening note, naturally, when his tech firm threatened to upend the traditional brokerage business in Las Vegas real estate. Blake Owens, the founder of Agrippa, was branded a Clark Kent knockoff and said he received the disturbing package at his home because his company released an ominous video in June. The video was ominous, so somebody severed a pig's head. The 30-year-old Vegas resident revealed he discovered the bloodied carcass wrapped in packing paper and stuffed inside a cardboard box. That's, what was that movie? What was that called? Seven, that Brad Pitt with the severed head in the box out in the desert. What's in the box? And it was his girl, wasn't it? It was something like that. It's like that. But 30-year-old guy is, and he's, hey, let's do business this way. And it's Vegas. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's apparently some organized crime there. Are you aware of that? Have you heard that in Vegas? And this is definitely Democrats, no doubt about it. And it's the old Godfather thing, Waltz is listening, and he gets the horse's head in his bed at that nice mansion in Beverly Hills, right? It's a nice house. Somebody lives there now, and that's somebody's bedroom today. That's good. I have my friend Marty. He went to a party at that house, the house where got the horse's head in the bed. Waltz's house. Isn't that amazing? His beautiful horse. What was the horse called? In The Godfather, got the severed head and put in the bed. I think the horse was called Khartoum. Khartoum. Is that correct? I think it's Khartoum. But that's just from memory. Is that true? Is that it's Khartoum? That's fun. Memory test. Sounds great. But this guy, you got to see the picture of this giant, like 60-pound severed pink pig's head. He says, came home, was notified of this package, opened it up, and sure enough, it was a pig's head. Hey, at least it wasn't in your bed when you woke up in the morning. Clark Kent's knockoff, a simple Google search, goes a long way these days, especially in Vegas. Isn't it amazing? Saw your Marcus video. What a joke. AI is not going to replace brokers. They got some pretty tough brokers, real estate brokers in Vegas, I guess, doing stuff like this. We got an update for you on the communists that the Democrats voted for in New York City to become mayor of our most populous city, most important city in the world. And what do you hear this communist? He wants to wage war as mayor of New York. Jihad, really, it's not. He doesn't wage war. He wages jihad against the president of the United States because Orange Man bad. The Democrat Party continues with their Wah, wah, wah. Here's the note. The threatening note to the Clark Kent knockoff, he calls him. Very angry note. Signed by M. M for mental, I think. Remarkable stuff. So I've got that for you. And, Cuomo and Mamdani, New York. We're going to have to sell New York, I think. Who'd want to buy it, honestly? We're at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. My friend Brian texted me, I see. The movie is called Seven. I know, I said it's called Seven. And he said, yes, the horse was Khartoum. I know, I said it's Khartoum. Come on. That might be the delay or something like that. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. We're at 888-630-9625. Let's go to Lee, who maybe not coincidentally is calling from Leesburg, Virginia. Lee, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris.
Hey.
Thanks for having me on your show. Chris, I've been living in D.C. for a long time, decades. I first moved here in 1988, and coming into Union Station, the first thing I was confronted with was a tourist who was stabbed in the stomach and who was laying next to a bench and being attended to by the, EMS. D.C. has never been a safe city. It hasn't been safe since the early 1960s. And after the riots, it's never been safe. And people like Eleanor Holmes' nutcase are part of the reason why this city is not a safe city. This city belongs to this country. It just doesn't belong to the people of D.C. This belongs to this country. And this government needs to get into Washington, D.C., rip this government from their grimy, corrupt hands and put it back in the hands of the people of this country. That city could be a model city for the rest of this country if Donald Trump and a Republican Congress would just go in there, rip this thing from their hands and put it back in some reasonable hands and get this crime out of the city. I don't even like to go into the city anymore because the crime is just you can't even tell sometimes where it's going to come from. Before and other times, D.C., the way D.C. is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's either better or worse than it was before in terms of crime. It's either getting better or it's getting worse than it was, but it's never safe. And you never know sometimes where something's going to creep up. So it's high time. It's way, 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 way overdue. Get these people out of this, this mayor, this corrupt representative out of there and take over this city.
More on that coming up. Donald Trump, caped crusader, fighting crime in our nation's capital. Democrats are angry. They certainly don't want to start fighting crime. But it may be happening. And I was just thinking, I got my brother, one of my brothers in town visiting from Chicago and staying with us. And a friend, Brian, said, hey, maybe happy hour tonight, huh? And now I see there are 15 additional federal law enforcement agencies on the street, as they say, in Washington, D.C., because of President Trump, because he's a crime fighter. And when you say you're a crime fighter, that means that the Democrats are crime, and you got to fight the Democrats because you know how they are. They are criminals and crime people. They're not good people at all. The Associated Press has the story. Trump orders increased federal law enforcement presence in Washington to, quote, make D.C. safe again, end quote. Well, why else would you do it? Stupid pants, honestly. The White House said Thursday night, that's last night, there will be increased presence of federal law enforcement in the nation's capital to combat crime for at least the next week. I'd like to see it go on forever, permanently, I think. Amid President Donald Trump's suggestion that his administration could fully take over running the city. Well, I don't know. We've got Trayon White. He's a city councilman, and he believes that the Rothschild family controls the weather. The Jews make it snow because that means they can take over the city. And Democrats, they're not very well. Mentally, of course. And then Caroline Leavitt, the wonderful White House press secretary, said Washington, D.C. is an amazing city, but it's been plagued by violent crime for far too long. I agree. I concur. And she went on to say, Caroline Leavitt said, President Trump has directed an increased presence of federal law enforcement to protect innocent citizens. You know, a Doge guy was beaten bloody by a mob of Democrat racist criminals just the other night. But it's okay, like in Cincinnati, when a gang of black people punch a woman's face in and make it look like Mike Tyson knocked her out on the street, and when 10 guys kick and stomp a white guy, you got to have a white guy and then a white woman taking the beating. That's not a national news story. That's not like George Floyd or anything like that. That's not a big deal because it was a racist attack on white people by a violent mob of criminals who are black, and that makes it okay. And in Washington, D.C., the young guy with Doge who was beaten bloody, guess what? It has a similar pattern. I know, it's quite surprising. But Caroline Leavitt says increased presence of federal law enforcement. Now, Michael, now you can go down to 14th Street tonight. You can go to that place with the French name, and maybe nobody will be shot. Caroline Leavitt added that the increased presence of federal law enforcement means there will be no safe harbor for violent criminals in D.C. Well, that'd be a real change of pace, wouldn't it? That'd change everything. Trump has repeatedly suggested the rule of law could be returning to federal authorities. Doing so would require a repeal of the Home Rule Act of 1973 in Congress, a step Trump said lawyers are examining, but could face steep pushback. It should always be a federal district, and even the federal government couldn't do as bad a job of running the city as the elected Democrats here are doing, because they're terrible financially, and the schools and the crime. And you talk to the D.C. Metropolitan Police officers, which I do, and they're great. The police are great. The leadership, not so great in the police department and the city in general. The White House said the increased federal law enforcement would make D.C. safe again and would be present on the streets starting at midnight. That's last night at midnight. Led by U.S. Park Police following an 11 p.m. Thursday roll call at an established command center. A great federal law enforcement agency, the U.S. Park Police, underestimated and undervalued, underappreciated, because Democrats, The push will last the next 7 days with the option of extending as needed under the authority of Trump's previous executive order, established the Making D.C. Safe and Beautiful Task Force. Want to make D.C. safe and beautiful. It is a beautiful city, and I got to tell you, it has become more crime creepy because you go to a great many neighborhoods. You got to constantly keep your eyes peeled. And the Democrats, they do things like they say, where are the nicest neighborhoods in D.C., the most crime-free neighborhoods? And they identify those neighborhoods. And they say, let's tear down a nice building and put in a homeless shelter there because we want homeless people, baby mamas and babies, and then when their baby daddies get out of prison, they come to the neighborhood, and then they're standing around threateningly, menacingly, panhandling and demanding things and going to grocery stores and stealing the place blind, so they have to close the grocery stores earlier. You have grocery stores that used to close at midnight in D.C. that now close at 9 p.m. because after 9 p.m., the Democrats start coming in and stealing stuff, and they load up the carts, and then they threaten to kill the security guards when they walk out stealing all this stuff. And they've made that normal. The Democrats have made that normal. And they have. They've done this across the country, too. You can steal up to $900 worth of stuff in California. So guess what people do? They bring their calculator and they go to stores and they steal $850 worth of stuff, and then they walk out with it. Then they go to another store a block away and they load up $850 worth of stuff, and they steal it because the Democrats have laid out the rules, and that's what they do. So next 7 days, and I think that's good stuff. Now, this really upset the people at Morning Joke, MSDNC, because they're mentally ill Democrats. They're very unwell. And we have, let me see, where do those begin again, Michael? 19? There they are. They're very upset. Now, again, a lot of crimes. There are noteworthy crimes. If you get your news from MSNBC, you don't learn anything about any of this because they protect the Democrat Party's criminal ways by not reporting the news. Know what I'm talking about? So here's Morning Joke this morning, very angry that President Trump is going to fight crime in Washington, D.C. They don't live in Washington, D.C. They live in Florida. They pretend to be in New York for the sake of television, and sometimes they pretend to be in Washington for the sake of television with fake backdrops of locations where they are not because they're generally in Florida. And here's Mo Yarbrough this morning with his semi-inflatable flotation device of a third wife sitting next to him.
We don't want a federal takeover of the Capitol. Certainly don't need the National Guard in there, or certainly not Marines. But you look at Washington, D.C., and it's been dangerous for years. There have been a couple of years here, a couple of years there, where it's been a bit better. But it's certainly over the past 5 years, it has just been an absolute mess. Its quality of life has been terrible.
Now, over the last 5 years, so while Biden was president, D.C. has been a nightmare. The quality of life has been terrible. Crime has been terrible. But Joe Scarborough wants to make sure that no one does anything about it because they protect crime. Illegal aliens from the Sinaloa cartel and MS-13, they love crime. And if you say, well, we're going to do something about crime, then they immediately, the media, the Democrat media, they start attacking you, slandering you and maligning you, which is what they do on any given day anyway. We can't have the National Guard. Joe Biden called out the National Guard to Washington, D.C., and they stayed for months in Washington, D.C., occupying our city, military vehicles on street corners. It's the third worlding of America because these commie morons are really banana republic lefties. They're not liberals at all. They John F. Kennedy were still alive. He wouldn't be for long with these guys around. Pretty amazing stuff. Yeah, and Joe Biden, January 6th. Now, the chief of the U.S. Capitol Police had asked for the National Guard to be activated, to be called up for the January 6th protest, and Nancy Pelosi shot that down, made sure that didn't happen. And then the Democrats called up the National Guard after the fact, and they occupied Washington, a military occupation of our nation's capital, after the fact, and they didn't when the Democrats were rioting in the city and attacking the White House for 3 days, forcing the evacuation of the President of the United States and his family to the underground nuclear bunker, torching the Church of the President with an incendiary device. They love firebombing stuff. And that was a Christian church. Usually it's Jewish things, but no, that's not true because they attacked 500 Catholic churches in that time frame, too. No National Guard then, but never mind that. And remember the National Guard, some of the guardsmen, where were they from? Were sleeping in a parking garage, and they ordered pizza. And they got their pizza, and the Democrats at the pizza place had smashed up glass and sprinkled the broken glass in the pizza that they delivered because they're Democrats. Now, in 2021, the January 14th of 2021, up to 21,000 National Guard troops. Up to 21,000 National Guard troops now authorized in D.C., right? National Guard mobilized for 30 days, including it's all about Biden, including Biden because the, 6,200 National Guard go to D.C. It's, that's all fine. But if Trump should talk about that, then it's time to fire on Fort Sumter. Aren't they amazing? Don't want Marines, don't want National Guard. Okay. I got an idea. I've been saying this for years, too. Hey, Democrats, Stop shooting people. How about that? Is that too much to ask? The answer is yes, it's too much to ask. Morning joke this morning, talking about for the last 5 years while Joe Biden was president. D.C.'s been terrible. It's been unlivable. That's what he says. He's an idiot. He lives in Florida. And Joe Scarborough.
We've heard it from people that have gone there to visit, are horrified that the nation's capital is as dangerous as it is.
We've heard it from people.
25, 30 years of friends asking, really, this is how the nation's capital runs?
Well, yeah, it's run by Democrats, and you people are all mental, and all your kids are violent criminals, and you protect them. So here's it's been horrible. It's been terrible. It's like a third world hellhole. We've talked to people. Now, again, the backdrop on their TV show is Washington, and he sounds like he's never even visited. He was a member of Congress, a Republican member of Congress. He was a fraud then. He's a fraud now. Joe Scarborough.
Anything that the administration can do to forge a partnership with the city that I've got to say its leaders seem unwilling to do what is required to keep city streets safe. That's something that's encouraged. Again, they don't have to federalize it, but just help the city help themselves.
Help the city. How condescending you possibly be. So the great white masters should come in and tell the all-black D.C. government virtually. I think there might be one Jewish guy on the D.C. City Council, but other than that, and they're all liberals, and they don't know how to run a city. They don't know how to run a budget. They don't know how to fight crime. They know how to make matters worse. And you hear Mo Yarborough here, Joe Scarborough, saying the most ridiculous things. But don't federalize it. Don't do anything about it. Help them to help themselves. Mr. Condescending Racist, he really converted fully to the Democrat Party, didn't he? And for 20, 25 years, been so bad, people are shocked at how bad it is. But don't do anything about it, because that's the Democrat program. Let them die is their mantra. Morning joke.
If city council members continue to do things that undermine the security of the streets and of the communities and the places, not only where tourists go, where people have to go to work day in and day out, then yeah, we need the federal government to be far more involved in the nation's capital. This is not Nebraska. This is the nation's capital. It should be safe for Americans and tourists from around the world to visit.
So help the poor people running D.C. to help themselves. Don't do anything yourself. Don't fix anything. This is what liberals conclude when it comes to absolutely everything. Don't fix anything. Just give it BS lip service and, blame Trump, orange man bad, and all kinds of stupidity, honestly. These people. Speaking of insane, dangerous Democrats, the New York City Democrat Party, the Democrats in New York, they had a primary election for the mayor of New York, and the Democrats, they elected, the communist, jihadi, anti-American, and off on the side there is lady killer Cuomo, mostly in nursing homes is where he killed ladies. But they went to the cameras yesterday, and you're not going to believe what these knuckleheads said.
Over the past 5 years, it has just been an absolute mess. Its quality of life has been terrible.
Yeah, I've got Zohran Mamdani coming up, and Andrew Cuomo coming up there. Both, for some reason, they want to be mayor of New York. One is power drunk. Cuomo wants to kill more old people in retirement homes, and of course, one is a jihadi who wants to destroy Western civilization. Zohran Mamdani. And wipe Israel off the map from the river to the sea and have a global intifada, which is to kill Jews everywhere you find them. And the Democrats in New York voted for him. Hey, vote for him. All right, let's take a phone call, Michael. Let's go to, Let's go to Patrick, calling from the tiny state of Rhode Island. Patrick, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for taking my call.
Oh, sure.
Today is Frank Fugazi Day. It's August 8th. And We all know what that means. Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler, that's right.
And,
August 8 means Heil Hitler because it's 8-8 on the calendar, and H is the 8th letter in the alphabet. Therefore, any reference to 8-8, August 8th, secretly means Heil Hitler, right? And that's what this guy, Frank Fugazi, he's a former FBI guy, right?
Yeah, he is. He's probably going to make a connection, another Nazi connection with that Sydney Sweeney ad because her initials are SS.
Oh, my God, that's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that. And of course, Hitler's SS, the feared SS gang in the Nazis, and her name is Sydney Sweeney. Coincidence? I don't think so.
No, I think not.
What do you think she's doing on 8-8?
Have a great weekend. Pardon?
What do you think Sydney Sweeney's doing on 8-8?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe I should call her.
This is the kind of stuff. And this Frank, it's Figliuzzi, the Frank Figliuzzi guy, is being sued by the FBI director, Kash Patel, because Figliuzzi went on MSDNC and made up stories about the FBI director, Kash Patel, saying that he's not going to work. He's just out at nightclubs in Washington. And Kash Patel's having none of it. Frank Figliuzzi is being sued now by Kash Patel for fabricating a specific lie about him. And, saying that Kash Patel's been visible at nightclubs far more than he's been on the 7th floor of the Hoover building, at his office at the FBI headquarters in Washington. And he's Figliuzzi, he's a commentator in good standing on MSDNC because it's their job to lie to a shrinking audience every day. And that's they got Joe Scarborough. But as he's out there with this, oh, sure, it's been horrible for 25 years, but don't do anything about it. And what do you hear these commies from New York City running for mayor? That's coming up. They're definitely not on our side. Not on our side. Patrick, thank you.